Hi, it's Joe Mazumdar of Exploration Insights. I'm at the January 2026 edition of the Metals Investment Forum, a very well-attended event. And with me right now is the President and CEO of Inflection Resources, Alistair Waddell. Alistair, Happy New Year. Inflection, for those who don't know, is a grassroots explorer that does deals with majors because their idea is to find these projects that majors want because they're not doing these programs. So how has that worked for you in terms of what you're doing in New South Wales with AngloGold Ashanti and where you're projecting to go now in the Northern Territory, not only with staying Australia focused, but also the different deposit styles and using your technical team and advisors to basically pick up some of these projects that the majors are letting go?
Yeah, so in New South Wales, as you say, we've got a big partnership with AngloGold Ashanti, and it was always the intent of Inflection when we started this whole idea of exploring for big porphyries in the Macquarie Arc undercover, chasing this belt of rocks underneath a blanket of younger cover, to ultimately have a partnership with a major mining company. It's really a big company play. I think it's quite different from a lot of the typical junior explorer stories in many ways. But we are truly looking for sort of giant porphyries undercover. And it really requires a significant commitment of time and capital. So,
like just to do the surveys, the geophysics, and to take punts on holes that are totally blind.
Right, and I mean it is doable, but it's certainly a lot easier with a big company as a partner. We can tap into their technical expertise. For example, AngloGold has geophysicists, geochemists, all sorts of people on their team that we can draw upon their expertise. So it's worked very, very well for us. And say the original concept was to really find projects or targets that would appeal to the major mining companies from day one. I mean, ultimately, it's the major mining companies are the end buyers of these projects. So give them exactly what they want. And copper gold in Australia was really a common theme. We thought that would appeal to a wide number of major mining companies.
And you've also, you had that period where they were exploring, and within this land package, there's stuff that's still wholly yours.
Correct.
But within the Anglo, now they've actually taken out 4 projects.
Yes.
Which are now into the next phase.
Correct.
Because the first phase, they don't gain any kind of interest.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to gain 51.
Correct. Yeah. So they basically invested 10 million Australian dollars in phase 1, which was essentially a scout drilling program, looking through the cover, looking for evidence of geochemistry or alteration or mineralization. And at the end of that $10 million phase 1 program, they selected 4 projects where there's a mechanism where they can go all the way up to 75% interest in each of the projects by delivering pre-feasibility studies and seeding back to Inflection a 1 or a 2% net smelter return royalty.
What's this next phase of the 51%? How much are they obliged to get the 51% to spend over what kind of term?
So they have an option to get to 51% by spending 7 million Australian dollars on each project. So. And then to get to 65, they've got to spend an additional 20 on each. So it's a fairly sizable commitment if they go all the way. And then, but the real big one, as I mentioned, is the pre-feasibility study to get to 75%. And we think that will be a fairly significant hurdle for any group to essentially drill off one of these big porphyry deposits. We're testing, exploring for projects that are likely going to be exploited underground by block cave methods. So this is a fairly significant endeavor, and it will be very expensive to deliver that pre-feasibility study.
And so, with that happening, and most of that program you're running with your team,
yes,
does it switch after 51%?
So they've retained the right to take over management of the projects, but we right now operate. We take a 10% management fee for doing that, and that's enabled us. We haven't raised capital in about 2.5 years now, but it really works very well for both groups. I think it's fair to say they looked at Inflection, their team and our experience, how to operate, not just from a technical perspective, but how to manage data, how to operate safely. We come from major mining companies ourselves, so we bring a lot of that major mining company experience to
In terms of understanding what they want.
Understanding what they want and
how they operate.
Everything from not hurting people to actually, the technical aspects of exploration.
And also
as well.
Socially, the community
Correct.
part, because they don't want to look like idiots either.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, but you don't rest on your laurels with that, which is a significant land package. You are now venturing into the Northern Territory. The Macquarie Arc, which has major mines like Cadia, which are alkali porphyries, copper gold deposits. And now you're still looking for copper gold, but now you're looking at these IOCGs, which are these iron oxide copper gold deposits, but in the Northern Territory. How did that come about?
So that's the next phase for the company. I mean, obviously the projects in New South Wales will continue to tick along nicely with Anglo Gold. We also intend to do some additional drilling of our own on some of the projects outside of those 4 projects that Anglo have selected. But this sort of new opportunity in the Northern Territory was very opportunistic. The targets that we've acquired were originally generated by Newcrest Mining, one of Australia's big successful mining groups. And they did a country scale targeting exercise looking for very large copper gold deposits, and with a bit of a focus on IOCGs, which iron oxide copper gold deposits. And they did the targeting, they acquired the ground in this new district in the Northern Territory, and did a little bit of work, and then the merger happened with Newmont. So everything got put on hold. The assets essentially went to the new Newmont, and we were, let's say, encouraged to approach Newmont about acquiring these specific licenses, which they thought would perhaps fall out of that. But as you know, when groups come together, there's often a period of reorganization and assets get divested and things like this. And this was a great opportunity for us. So they're very, very big targets. They're geophysical targets, a little bit like what we're exploring for in New South Wales. We've identified a big structural corridor, which we consider as essentially a conduit for fluids. And there's a whole chain of very distinct, complex magnetic features that have not been drilled. And that's ultimately what we acquired. It's a part of a big land package. It's 4,500 square kilometers. Sure. So that's in addition to the 9,000 square kilometers we have in New South Wales. So it's a big, big play. And but it really fits our strategy of looking for giant copper gold deposits.
So how do we test this? Because that's mostly undercover as well.
It is. So we're really going to take and use our experience, what we've been doing in New South Wales, looking for porphyries undercover and applying that to these IOCGs in the Northern Territory. And what we're playing around with now for the Northern Territory is doing air core drilling. And this is a very cheap method of drilling down through the cover, and typically between sort of 10 to 30 meters of basement. So these IOCG deposits, as I'm sure you know, have big geochemical and alteration footprints. And the thought is if we drill sort of 2, 3, 4 holes in each of these distinct geophysical features, widely spaced holes, we should see some evidence for a system, if it's there, of course. Right. But it'd be a very efficient and disciplined way of testing some very big targets with a relatively modest amount of capital.
So in terms of news flow for anybody interested in Inflection resources going forward in 2026, what should we expect?
So the most immediate thing is we just announced on Monday, in fact, a 83 drill hole program in New South Wales, following up on some previous intercepts that we had. We found another little zone, which we announced on Monday as well, a sort of a zone of skarn type alteration, which returned 3 meters at just under 8 grams, in a brand new area with no drill holes around it. So we're going to be doing a little bit of follow-up on that. So it'll be a fair amount of news associated with that Anglo Gold funded program. We've also got 2 other targets in New South Wales, which will probably just follow on from that.
Those were ones you recently acquired?
No, we didn't one of them, sorry, you're right. One of them we did recently acquire. It came available, a piece of ground we've been watching for a long, long time, just to the south of our principal Trangie project. And then some other targets a little bit further to the north that we've been sitting on for a long time, and they've had them on the back burner while we've been focusing on with Anglo Gold. So there's those sort of 3 things. And then will transition into the programs in the Northern Territory once the wet season. Yeah, so the wet season sort of continues, let's say mid to late April, from sort of year end, and we'll be able to get on the ground there and do some scout drilling.
So how well are you funded to do that, your 100% stuff?
So the beauty of what we're talking about with the air core drilling is the cost of doing that. So we can drill about a 200-meter hole here for about 6,000 Australian dollars.
Wow.
So it's about $25 a meter direct drilling costs. And then we've got assays and geologists and things on top of that. So we can drill about one of those holes a day is what we're planning. So I say the AngloGold piece obviously funded. The two assets in New South Wales, they're fairly modest programs. I think we've got 6 holes planned in one target and 20 holes in the next one. So we've got about $1.5 million in the treasury, but we also been receiving about $1 million of management fees per year from AngloGold Ashanti as well, as part of operating their joint venture. So we're in great shape for testing those ones. The Northern Territory project, well, that's a little bit different, but the numbers are relatively modest. It was probably $750,000, something like that.
So that program that could hopefully generate enough smoke, at least if you're interested in doing a similar sort of deal like you did with Anglo,
right,
that might attract somebody as opposed to just the magnetic anomaly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of schools of thought there. Whether we go and poke some holes into it ourselves, or whether we start trying to find a major mining company as a partner to work with us in the long term to explore those targets as well. And that's something we are exploring right now for sure.
All right. Well, that's Inflection Resources, grassroots exploration, partially funded by majors, but also bringing on new projects and new deposit styles that they hadn't been exploring for in a low-risk geopolitical jurisdiction of Australia and at a low cost with respect to drilling, which is important in terms of funding when you don't make any money. So thank you very much, Alistair.
Thank you, Joe.
Cheers. Okay, that's Joe Mazumdar, Exploration Insights at the January 2026 edition of the Mills Investment Forum.